Welcome. Today's question is, how do we ideate using the action matrix of ideas? This is coming from our ideation series when we're looking at different types of tools or ideation tools within our design thinking toolbox. So again, let's look at where does ideation fit into the greater scheme of things within design thinking. So ideation is stage 3 or phase 3 in the 4D design thinking framework. So our 4Ds are discover, define, design, and do. So we're in the design stage, and in the design stage we have ideate, prototype, test, and validate. And what we're trying to do here is use one of the tools in our design thinking toolbox, which is located within our learning and experience loops, and trying to grab one of those that is going to help us to ideate in an effective way. So we grab the tool out of our toolbox, and that tool is called the action matrix of ideas. Now, the action matrix of ideas comes from the book Blue Ocean Strategy, and we use it in this case, and you'll sometimes hear that matrix referred to as the ERRC Grid. And it's called that because we have the 4 stages within the matrix. And in this case, we call it an action matrix, which is what it was referred to in the actual book, because they're 4 key actions that we're going to engage with as we're coming up with ideas. And those actions are to eliminate, reduce, raise, and create. So when we work through each of these phases, we're proponents here of leading growth, of doing things in groups of 4, and in this case, in our ideation sessions, we often recommend that each ideation session lasts roughly about 30 minutes, give or take, and we often will recommend somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes between each session. And we would recommend 30 minutes on eliminate, 30 minutes on reduce, 30 minutes on raise, and 30 minutes on create, and to do them separately. That said, I have run these sessions in 30 minutes in total and run through all 4 in 30 minutes and done this many, many times. And particularly when I've done this, it's mainly been when I'm working with a team that we work on things like this on a regular basis, and we would use this framework or this matrix typically probably about at least once, sometimes twice a month for various reasons. So it's a really great tool. It's probably, to be honest, it's probably one of my favorite ideation tools. So there's so many ways of utilizing this tool, and I think because so much can come out of it and it forces you to think slightly differently. Massive fan of this tool. So we're going to discuss this tool in detail to help you work through it. Ask people the questions. What isn't working? So ask them those questions, get them to write down their ideas onto the notepad or whatever it is you're using, as sticky notes. It could be using a storm board or a vision board, or you could be using Teams, depending on what it is you're using. Ask them what's not working. So if we're looking at a new system, what isn't working now? And that's going to be a different question to what are the roadblocks. And again, similar to another question we often will ask people are, what don't we need? Because sometimes when the system was first developed, and that was often some time ago, it was developed with the different sets of needs and processes. And sometimes what happens is those processes continue as a process of traditional because we've always done it that way. And we haven't really thought about, well, do we need all these things right now? Or, are there any that we don't probably need? And again, any hot pain points. So when we're talking about pain points, these can be annoyances, frustrations, anything like that. And we might color code those into hot and warm. So hot, a red, warmer, an orange. And so anything that's really, really pressing that we really need to look at, we're going to put those as hot pain points. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask people to work through these questions, work through these rounds. So when we move to our next stage, which is the reduction phase, again, if you're new to design thinking or if you're not really sure where to begin, if people are new to this, I'll often get them to start with reducing rather than elimination. So it depends on where you sit on that scheme of things. And again, we have 4 questions. So we want to, remember we talked about pain points in the elimination one, where we talked about just putting in the red pain points, which were those hot pain points. So now what we're going to do is look at the orange pain points, and this is where we would put them in this section here. So we're looking at what are we going to reduce. So these aren't really the super hot pain points that really need looking at straight away. These are those annoyances, those frustrations, but geez, wouldn't it be good to improve those so that they don't exist or so that we can make things better, streamline things is often the case. So asking the questions about what's causing frustrations, what's taking too much time, where are the holdups? These are the kind of questions. So what's producing inefficiencies within a system? What is making things work not as smoothly as what we would like them to be? What is there something that we're offering way too many of, way too much? So for example, if we're offering a whole pile of programs to our customers or to our clients, do we need to offer this many programs? Are we offering way too many? So these are the kinds of questions that you want to ask yourself when you're looking at what are we going to reduce and what are those ideas. Our next phase is where we start to move to raise. So these are the things, what are we going to raise above what people would normally expect or benchmarks. To be honest, I'm not in favour of benchmarks. It's something I'm, and I know a lot of people are. They love to benchmark, love to know, well, what's the norm for this particular process? And I guess I'm not a fan of it because I think it can be limiting, but it also can be good because we think, well, if we're going to raise something above the benchmark, we kind of got to know, well, what is that benchmark? What does that look like? So there's pros and cons to this idea of benchmarking. So we might be looking at, are there ways that we can save time? Are there ways that we can improve the system? Are there ways that we can streamline it? Are there ways that we can make it less complex, make it simple, make it easy to use, make it simple? These are often the things that we're looking to raise because people want things that are easy to do, simple to follow, easy. We don't have to sit down and explain to people over and over again. They get it because it's naturally a simple process. So really think about what it is you're trying to improve and who are you trying to improve that for. So always have at the center of the process the people that you're trying to improve things for. Now, the creation part of the matrix is often the hardest. Sometimes people find it the second hardest. So elimination and creation are typically the two hardest that most people struggle with. So these are the things they really need high order thinking, higher, a lot more creativity. So always do those towards the end of the session or when people are at peak performance. So you want to make sure that people have had a reasonable break beforehand. You want to make sure that they've committed with time. There's lots of clarity about what's going on. And the facilitator will ask a number of key questions. So to facilitate some of the creativity that people have, we want to think about, well, what are we trying to create here? We're trying to develop ideas of something new, something that hasn't been done before, something that's novel, it's unique. And people will often stumble in this process. But what I find is, and that's why in the 4DLX growth framework, we have the learning experience loops, because what we find is once people have used design thinking over and over and over and over and over and over again and have lots of experience, and particularly with this framework or with many of the other tools, that this whole idea of coming up with brand new concepts and brand new ideas becomes so much easier. And it's just about switching it on, and people come up with ideas and it goes bang, 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 bang. But we find people that are really new to this process find it really challenging. So most people will sit somewhere within that continuum. And sometimes when we're talking about the creation of ideas, sometimes it's good to get people to do that part individually and then to share and do it into blocks of 3 or 4 and just share. So one of the ways that we do this is we might split the session up into 4 blocks, 4 questions. Ask people to fill out those questions individually on their stickies. Then we'll actually talk through some of those things and then ask the next question and then get people to put down stickies. Sometimes we'll do it this way. Again, it really comes down to what we're trying to work towards. If it's something like a new system, a new process, and something new in the market, this can be really helpful to generate more ideas because you start to get a synergy within the group because it's meant to be a team sport. So you really want to think about, well, what are the key benefits that we provide? So when you're thinking about creation, you think about who am I creating this for? So if it's a new process, is it for a team? Is it to improve our customer experiences? Is it for our customers? Like trying to think what it is that we're doing for. What do we need that we don't already have? Is there something that could help streamline this process, make it less complicated, make it easier to use? What can we create? What do our customers tell us they value? So often customers will give us feedback. They're quite happy to tell us what they don't like. But when we turn that around, what is it that they're telling us they do like? So for example, if they're telling us this is taking too much time to process, this is taking a lot of time to load, this is annoying, I'm getting stuck in the cart. What they're really telling us is they want something that's easy. They want something that's not going to take much time. It's not going to take a lot of effort. So it's telling us that they're valuing those items. So if we know that that's what they're valuing, then we can potentially create a system to fix that. So you want to know what you want to look at your complaints as well as what people don't like, because honestly, complaints or customer pain points, if we look at those as opportunities to give our customers a fantastic experience or to improve our customer experience, and we take those with a different mindset, that's where we can really make a difference. So what happens is with our action matrix of ideas, it will look something like this when it's complete, whether it's on a virtual storm board, a Teams board, an Excel chart, or whether it's on a huge big pieces of paper, cardboard, etc. But at my experience, we have fewer ideas in elimination and creation. As I mentioned, they're the two areas that tend to challenge teams. And we tend to have a lot more ideas in the reduction and the raising sections of our ideas. Once it's completed, ideally what we want to do is get everybody to read through those ideas and to discuss those concepts. Now, again, depending on how you completed this, that may or may not have happened throughout the entire process. So once we've completed the action ideas matrix, the next step is to develop another session on a different day when we start to reduce down those ideas from the idea action matrix. And what we'll do is we'll pull out the tool, how do we reduce our ideas, or concept reduction? And we'll pull that tool out of the toolbox, and we'll create another session for that on a different day.